Soulmates, we have made it to yet another Wednesday. Thank you in advance for joining the conversation. Welcome to FOXSOUL's Black Report. We're following the latest on a black couple who had $40,000 seized from the FBI, and they say they're not sure why. Plus, the newest updates surrounding Jonathan Major accusations. I'm Courtney Hicks, and we got this Soul Brother #1 rotation going on. Here. Glad to have you here.
Good. We got some good headlines here. Look, I'm Brandon Hudson in for Nicolai Corte. Plus, the tight deadline Martha Reeves is under to secure her legacy, and the school who has finally hired their first black president. These are stories that impact our people.
That's right. We're going to bring you our news, our views, and our voice. So let's get into, Brandon, our top conversation for the day. All eyes on Vice President Harris as she is brought to tears during her emotional visit to Africa. The VP reflected on the horrors of slavery and how we need to learn from history in an emotional remark after touring an old slave trading post on the coast of Ghana as part of her week-long visit to the continent. Take a listen.
So being here was immensely powerful and moving. When we think about how human beings were treated by the hundreds of thousands in this very place that we now stand, the crimes that happened here, the blood that was shed here, there are dungeons here where human beings were kept, men, women, and children. They were kidnapped from their homes. They were transported hundreds of miles from their homes, not really sure where they were headed, and they came to this place of horror.
Harris said she would take from her visit the need to fight for justice and freedom for all people and human rights for all people. And Brandon, I haven't been there yet. It's definitely on my list.
Same.
But I know people who've gone to Ghana, who've gone to that particular location, and they said it is just very emotionally overwhelming to trace the steps and to stand in the place where our ancestors stood.
What's stunning about that image of the vice president is she's still well put together. Yeah. As always, but you can tell that she has gone through an emotional and spiritual journey just in that image there. And then you hear the words that she has spoken. I hope that when she gets back here to the States, that a lot of the work that she has done in research and journey that she has done over in Africa can lead to a platform here. Yeah. Because one of the things that I've heard a lot of critics and a lot of people just in conversation talk about, they haven't really heard a lot from the vice president. She was very outspoken during her campaign, during her time with Joe Biden, but since she has been elected into office, we haven't heard a lot from her. Yeah. So I hope that this will be a catalyst for her to start a platform or
of her own, something to claim of her own.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, usually these visits for most people that I've talked to are very transformative, and you can't help but to be changed by just being in that atmosphere and soaking in all of that history, all of the emotion. On a much, lighter side, from my sister soulmates, you can't get away from the heat. I've never seen her. I've never seen her hair curly like that, but that just shows that just the impact of visiting a place like the motherland and all the emotion that it can bring. It really just breaks you down in so many ways, and it's just like they tell you, come as you are, and come get some of this. And I'm excited that the VP is picking up on it and getting some, is going to bring it back.
A very humanizing moment.
That's
there.
Right.
All right. So look, back here in the U.S., Congresswoman Cori Bush announced the formation of a new caucus focused on the Equal Rights Amendment, which would guarantee equality under the law regardless of gender. Now, Representatives Judy Chu, Jennifer McKellen, Sidney Kamlager-Dove, and Summer Lee will serve as vice chairs. Bush emphasized the importance of centering marginalized groups in the fight for gender equality and acknowledged the work of black women in this fight. The era was first introduced in Congress 100 years ago. And despite being ratified by the required 38 states, it has yet to become the 28th Amendment due to a congressional deadline.
Yeah, and so, I was doing my history on this because this was a new one for me. Turns out the reason it's been delayed for like 50 years is because at the time they required 38 more states to ratify this particular push, the ERA, and to make it the 28th Amendment. It must have missed a deadline back in 1982. So now you have the efforts where they're bringing this right.
Yeah.
That where they're bringing this back up. And of course, it's all grounded and anchored in gender equality that will affect all of us, in particular, people of color. And so it's a very important piece of legislation. How it got lost in the sauce, I like to say that a lot. I'm not so sure, but I'm glad it's coming back around, especially with the times that we're living in at this moment.
This is another example of minority women of color, getting things done, getting things done
saving
for the betterment,
the world, like we
for the
always
betterment of
do.
our country, and we appreciate you, women.
That's right.
But yeah, this is hopefully something that can succeed and continue, and go for the improvement of our country.
We'll see. Yeah. We'll see. We'll keep our eye on it. All right. Survivors of a racist massacre that killed 9 black worshipers at a Charleston church back in 2015 spoke at a hearing in Columbia, South Carolina. This happened on Tuesday. The survivors urged state senators to pass a hate crimes law, citing South Carolina's lack of legal enhancement of bias-based crimes, which they said sends a message that the state isn't serious about stopping this kind of wickedness that led to the massacre. South Carolina and Wyoming are the only U.S. states without a law giving stiffer penalties for crimes motivated by someone's race, sexual orientation, religion, or disability. The 2023 bill passed a Senate subcommittee on Tuesday and will go to the Senate floor, Brandon.
We need South Carolina and Wyoming to catch up. Catch up with history here. And that's the thing, South Carolina, Wyoming, it is not surprising because I looked this up. The population, black population, percentage population,
minuscule,
1.2%.
Yeah.
And that is from the 2020 census. So that's just 3 years ago. South Carolina, a quarter of its population, more than a quarter of its population is black or African American. And so when you see that and then about Charleston being in South Carolina.
That's right. And all that rich history.
Right. And so we've taken the statues down, and that's all well and good. But we need crimes that will protect our people of color. Yeah,
I was there not too long after that massacre, visited Mother Emanuel. The flowers were still fresh. Much like the emotion that VP Kamala Harris just displayed, it really took you in, it took you under. I just saw people sitting by themselves, meditating. Really, people from all walks of life at that point had really begun to continue to gather in Charleston and really help that community try to heal. But just sitting in that energy, sitting in that moment, it was heavy. It was heavy. So I'm hoping that as survivors, the message was very clear, and that these legislators will go about not only meeting the needs of the survivors, but honoring the legacy of those who did not make it. Yeah. All right.
So here's another headline from the South here. In Florida, the Association to Preserve the Eatonville Community is suing the Orange County School Board to halt the sale of a 100-acre property where the Robert Hungerford Preparatory High School stood. Now, the sale, which is worth $14.6 million, has been proposed to build 350 new homes and business spaces in a central part of Orlando. Eatonville is one of the first historically black towns in the U.S., and the lawsuit argues that the sale threatens the cultural heritage of the town. The town's association, along with other residents, are concerned that the sale will increase traffic and lead to the displacement of longtime residents. And this is what happens when you have a lot of our historic properties go up for sale, is that somebody's getting squeezed out. And that's the unfortunate side of it. So there has to be some sort of way, because this isn't just a Florida issue. This is an issue all across the country where they have to find a way to not squeeze our oldest, residents out of their properties that they've partly pretty much lived in for the rest most of their lives.
And on the other side of that, it's just there's times when this land has been flat out stolen, and that black folks want it back, and they want to claim it back. And if you're not going to give it to us back, you're going to have to pay us for it, especially now that there's proof, that this land was stolen. I've got a brother down in Orlando. I've been down there a few times for some sorority regional conferences and boules and things of that nature, and I did not know how black Orlando and that area is. I mean, the county, the city, it is black. And when you think Orlando, you just don't go there. I don't know if it's the Disney thing or something,
Disney
right?
World, maybe Daytona Beach.
And it's an international black community because you got, African Americans, but you have, your islanders and Africans there.
The temperature is still somewhat similar.
Yeah, it's a rich, colorful thing going on down there, society going on, culture going on down there.
And we have to make sure that those cultures don't get erased, because you see the headlines that come out of Florida now.
Preserved, right? Yeah, Florida's catching it. All right, let's move on to Illinois, where Congressman Bobby Rush is expected to endorse mayor candidate Paul Vallas on Tuesday. That's according to Vallas's campaign. Rush plans to offer his support during an anti-violence march on Chicago's South Side. Vallas is currently in a very close race with Cook County Commissioner Brandon Johnson for the mayor's seat, with both candidates seeking support from black voters who will play a key role in the election. Vallas is backed by the Chicago Fraternal Order of Police, while Johnson has received endorsements from national figures, including Senators Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, along with the Reverend Jesse Jackson. I lived and worked in Chicago for years. Paul Vallas, white guy, obviously, you see here, very well liked by a lot of black folks. They really liked his time as the CEO of the Chicago Public Schools. He was very likable. He was out in the community. You knew who he was, so he's definitely no stranger to Chicago. No surprise that he's put his bid in. Bobby Rush, that endorsement, a bit of a surprise. He's, very militant. He does not hold his tongue, but, maybe in this case, he feels as though Vallas is the more qualified guy in this race. But this is going to be tight, no matter where you side. But what is very clear is that the Chicagoans, were not satisfied and wanted a change from Lori Lightfoot.
Let me ask you this, because you have spent time there. And there's a documentary that's called City So Real that documented the rise of Lori Lightfoot. So if you have Hulu, National Geographic Channel, check that out, because it is a great docuseries. But with Paul Vallas, and I think he was profiled in that docuseries there, and this seems like very similar to when Joe Biden ran and the people in South Carolina. I think it was Jim Clyburn was the first person to speak up, and then you had a lot of older black voters who came side with somebody with Biden because they were familiar with him. Is this very similar situation here in Chicago, where the older black voters, if they know you, they're more likely to support you?
Bobby Rush has been around for years on top of years. He's from that old regale, and he is very well trusted throughout that Chicago community. And I just by him saying, I'm down with Vallas, I think that's going to push a lot of people maybe to the other side. However, you might have some Chicagoans that say, hey, this is a good brother here, and this is the kind of representation I want in the mayor's office, and so I'm going to stick here. Like I said, it's going to be a tight race. I'm more familiar with Vallas than I am the other candidate. However, that's a tough decision because you just want the best for Chicago, the third largest city in our country. And it's going to be an interesting race to follow.
Old guard versus new guard.
That's right.
It's always that.
That's right.
All right, so look, actress Niecy Nash, she expressed her deep emotions about the mass shooting that occurred at that school in Nashville. Now, in a TikTok video, she spoke about the tragedy, how she lost her own brother to a school shooting in 1993. I want you to take a look at this.
In 1993, my only brother was killed on his high school campus because somebody brought a gun to school. It's 2023. And there's babies who will never make it home to see their parents. And those parents will forever be in a space and a place where they are like, what was the last thing I said? What was the last lunch I made? What was their last thought, experience? Did they call out for me.
It's a very emotional,
heavy
message, and we appreciate the perspective by Niecy Nash. So the Nashville shooting resulted in the deaths of 3 children and 3 adults, and she really put into words what a lot of families feel after this. And I know a lot of time we talk about the number of people who died, how their ages, who they were, but we never really, and then we talk about gun reform, but we never really talk about the emotional trauma that these families go through after suffering a loss like this. And for Niecy, this was 30 years ago that she lost her brother. And this was well before, the Columbines and the Virginia Techs. This was 1993. And she is still traumatized to a degree after seeing every single school shooting that has happened. And it happens here, feels like once a month.
Yeah, and it's still triggered. And I went on to read that her mother is still very much involved in this. High school was in the California, maybe metro LA area. And her mother is still involved in an organization called MAVIS. It's Mothers Against Violence in Schools. And this was formed 30 some odd years ago. I mean, we're talking about, 93. Yeah. And so these type of efforts and this heartbreak has been long withstanding. Which should, feed even more into why these laws need to be passed to protect, our babies. And with this Nashville shooting, you had the janitor who was killed, a middle-aged black man with all kinds of kids and grandkids. They've raised like over $350,000 to help his family. And then the weirdest thing, actually the perpetrator IG'd, direct messaged a former classmate who happens to be black as well, right before she went into that school and wreaked havoc on that school. So just some very interesting stories that are falling out of this main headline that affect our community in particular. And again, I'm tired of saying that it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It is.
It is.
But it's just like, okay, enough of the emoji praying hands and the RIPs. We need to really press in and pass this legislation that's going to better protect us. This girl, or I think she's transgender, so he, purchased these high assault rifles and weapons legally. Legally.
And that's the issue there. A lot of this stuff is happening legally, and then they're going and committing some horrific crimes.
That's right. That's right. We're going to move on here. Former current NBA players, including Drew Holiday of the Milwaukee Bucks, were reportedly defrauded out of $13 million, Brandon, by former financial advisor Daryl Cohen, who was charged with conspiracy to commit wire fraud and investments.
A lot of coin.
It is.
Yeah.
Now, Cohen was accused of transferring money from the accounts of several NBA clients to pay off his own credit card debt and fund personal projects, including building sports facilities in his backyard. Charles Briscoe, a former NBA agent, and 2 others were also charged. The defendants could face up to 40 years in prison. Morgan Stanley, where Cohen once worked, said it was prepared to cooperate with the investigation. I know you're a big NBA fan, so you're familiar with these guys, as am I. I'm wondering, it happens all the time.
Yep.
We just heard of...
Doesn't matter who you are.
I know.
Doesn't matter who you are. You can be a multimillionaire NBA basketball player. You can have all the people around you. Yeah. But we can talk about that after we can talk about it after the break.
Yeah, he just lost a lot of millions as well.
Well, speaking of somebody who is a multimillionaire, maybe a billionaire, it's 50 Cent. And this dude is continuing to make some major moves.
He's well on his way to be a billionaire. We'll tell you about the newest deal he has in the works for charity. You're watching Fox Soul's Black Report. And we welcome you back to Fox Soul's Black Report. So there have been some claims made against L'Oreal alleging that their hair relaxers contain toxic chemicals that increase the risk of certain types of cancer.
So victims who have developed uterine, endometrial, or ovarian cancer are after using Dark and Lovely, Just For Me, or Cantu Shea Butter Relaxers, may be entitled to some sort of compensation.
Yeah, so there's a law firm that is investigating these claims and are offering free case evaluations. You can call 713-622-7271 or email reica buyandstock.com to learn more. So we've been talking about this for a while, and it's starting to come full circle to whereas if you have been affected or you feel you've been affected by the use of these products because it affects us soulmates the most, Black women in particular, now you can seek compensation, much along the lines of, I don't remember, talcum powder and things like that, those feminine products that later on were to cause some issues as well. So it's good that if you feel like you are a victim of these products, you can go somewhere and be compensated, and really, for me, allow your voice to be heard and the suffering that has taken place, in hopes that these makers will take better care as to what they put on the shelves, because we trust them that these products are okay. I know we have to be vigilant with our well-being, but in all, you pick up some hair products, you want to trust that it's going to do what it's supposed to do and not cause any bodily harm. Because it's sold on the store shelf. Right,
like
exactly.
you would think where the places where you can get it, you would be able to trust it. But that's unfortunately not the case. Yeah. I think, and I'm glad to see that there are more products meant for our soulmates to use. Yeah. But still, we need to start changing the standard. We need to shift the standard of beauty where we don't have to necessarily rely on these products because they're killing our women.
Well, what this has sparked is, we're going back to our kitchens and formulating our own recipes for our hair. All you gotta do is, either call up an old mama, an old granny, an old auntie, or, Google, and YouTube. Plenty of natural ways that you can create your own shampoos and conditioners and things of that nature, especially with the push with the natural hair.
If we'd only told those grandmas and aunties how to sell that stuff,
no,
we'd be in better shape. We'd be in better shape. Right. All right, so let's talk about two California residents, Linda and Reggie Martin, who were seeking answers from the FBI after their $40,000 savings were taken during a raid of the Beverly Hills branch of U.S. private vaults in March of 2021. The FBI seized more than $86 million in cash, jewelry, and gold from 1,400 safe deposit boxes, affecting hundreds of people who were not suspected of any crimes. Now, according to the Institute for Justice, which is representing the Martins, the FBI acted on its plan to search and forfeit the contents of any box worth more than $5,000. Linda Martin is now suing the FBI for violating the Fifth Amendment, which requires the government to provide specific factual and legal reasons for forfeiture.
What? I'd be so hot.
This is an insane story.
It is insane. I'd be so hot.
Yeah. No, look, and times are tough. Like, those rainy day savings, you need those now more than ever. Yeah. And hopefully they're able to, rectify this situation for Linda and Reggie, Mr. and Mrs. Martin. But they're probably going to drag their feet.
I would love to know, and I know that the story tried to explain a little bit, but how do you just go and get to seize people's property, based upon some value amount when there's no record of criminal activity? I mean, this is obviously, when you do a vault, that means you have something very precious that you want set aside and left alone for another time. And for somebody to go in and violate that, man, I'd be so doggone hot.
Sorry to cut you off there, but last block we had talked about having our people have their land stolen. This is a modern day version of that right here.
Property, land, I mean, jewelry, cash. And I wonder, if they're the lone stars in this one, or are those other folks who were, violated as well, are joining them in on this lawsuit. I hope that it's a crew of them coming at this government for seizing their property. That's crazy.
We'll see.
Yeah. All right, let's go to Philadelphia, where the 76ers are they doing good this year?
Yeah, they're in line to make the playoffs.
That's what I thought. Have chosen Local Artisan Foods as the third recipient of its annual buyback program, which supports Black-owned businesses. We love that. Local Artisan Foods specializes in French toast products. I heard there was French toast here this morning. And will receive a custom marketing plan, free advertising, and other opportunities as part of the partnership. Owner Charisse Miguel expressed excitement for the resources provided by the program, which will help her grow her business and provide employment opportunities in underserved communities. The buyback program is a part of the 76ers commitment to racial equity and promoting local small businesses in the Philly area. area. Love to hear it.
Yeah, I was there when they first started this program. It is a great investment, and this is why, people will love teams like the Philadelphia Eagles, like the Philadelphia 76ers, is because they have people on their team who speak up for the black communities and say, hey, look, these are people who support us too. We are in a majority black city. Let's give back to a lot of these businesses, local black owners who support us as well. They were I think they partnered with another business called Down North Pizza.
Oh, wow.
So they have
Everybody loves pizza.
Detroit style pizza, but it's sold in Philadelphia, and it's a second chance employer. So they employ people who have spent time, who have been incarcerated. Yeah. And they were profiled by the 76ers, and it did wonders for that business. So it's great to see that even after, the events of George Floyd, and we've, seen other companies kind of dial it back a little bit, that the 76ers, they're an organization who is continuing to go all in on helping out the black community.
Well, first of all, you can only get Detroit style pizza the best in Detroit. And second of all, listen, it's us running up and down these courts in this field.
Yes.
So, what they do as far as community involvement and outreach needs to reflect, the very people that work for the organization. Agreed. And I'm talking about the players. And so it just makes sense, and big ups to the 76ers. You mentioned the Eagles as well. And I'm sure there are other professional teams who do the same, or should get off the pot and start doing the same.
Start doing it.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. No time like the present.
That's right.
All right. So Rubber 50 Cent, he has teamed up with the Indiana Pacers, another NBA team, for a multi-year deal with his nonprofit organization, the G-Unity Foundation. Okay. Now, as a part of the partnership, Pacers sports and entertainment CEO Rick Fusion said that they will offer new experiences to their guests and the wider community. The foundation will also be highlighted during the 2024 NBA All-Star Game. Now, in addition, 50 Cent has been working to get his brand, Sire Spirits, into all 30 NBA arenas. Fans of the Sacramento Kings, Houston Rockets, and Minnesota Timberwolves can now enjoy some Sire Spirits, and the rapper is excited to be partnering with the Timberwolves. Okay,
partnerships. I guess that's another route that you can take, partnering with, well-known, established 50's not just an entertainer anymore. He's a mogul.
What a time to be alive, because 20 years ago, this dude was hanging upside down, telling people to go, be in the club, celebrate your birthday. And now he probably owns the club, plus many other clubs.
I know.
So this is a great thing to see. And he's doing it in markets where there isn't a large black population too. So he's introducing people who probably aren't of color to someone who is of color and is making moves. And I think this is another way. This isn't how you're not gonna end racism this way, but you can, break through implicit bias.
That's right.
By showing people that, hey, look, 50 Cent, he's not just a rapper anymore. You may remember him 20 years ago as that, but now he is a businessman in the same vein that you see a lot of other businmen here in America.
Yeah, and listen, he has transcended. I mean, he's like a pop star, if you ask me. So I think, other folks know who he is and are very familiar, with his path and his journey. And I was just telling some folks this, meeting him in the middle of his career. He was 50 Cent by then. What you see was not what I got when I met him. He was very kind, very polite, and he was wearing the best cologne ever. So I know sometimes he might come off as a bit of a jerk when he goes back and forth on social media, but when you peel that back, really a nice guy. And the business sense, you got to give it up to him. He has made some great moves in his career.
I'm glad you said that, because it shows that nice guys do finish first.
He might not seem like a nice guy all the time, but I think
that's his persona. That's he's got to keep that rep in the streets.
He's pretty cool though. All right, still ahead, the University of Texas at Austin is making a major move to honor Black culture.
We'll tell you about the new exhibit that's set to open to honor all contributions to their institution.
You're watching Fox Soul's Black Report. We'll be right back. Welcome back, Soulmates. We appreciate you joining the conversation today. The Center on Wrongful Convictions and Northeastern University School of Law's Civil Rights and Restorative Justice Project in Boston have filed a petition for executive clemency for Joe James.
Yeah, so James is a black man who was beaten and arrested for murder of a white man in Springfield, Illinois in 1908 after being found asleep under a tree. Now, a white mob seeking vengeance for the crime James was accused of committing took out its hate and anger on other black people in the state capitol, which turned it into a race riot. At least 2 other black men were lynched weeks before an all-white jury found James guilty. The center is set to go before the review board from next month.
Appreciate these efforts, but Brandon, I'll bet you $5 there are hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds untold stories like this. There was just no way back in those days, Jim Crow days, you were going to get justice. So it's good to see that on the back end, it doesn't make it any more hurtful and doesn't really right the wrong, but it's good to see on the back end that now there is some, not only acknowledgement, but some sort of kind of policy going forth to at least give some sort of justification hundreds of years later. And the fact that it's 1908 and then you forward that to 2023, and we're basically still reporting the same type of stories.
Those that don't know the history are doomed to repeat it.
That's right.
And you know, we're not hearing this in our books, or they're trying to take it out of our books. So why not have opportunities like this to learn about this kind of history?
That's right.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to Evanston, Illinois. Their city council has voted in favor of expanding its reparations program to repair housing discrimination with a cash option. Now, the meeting lasted 3 hours, and it took the council 3 seconds to approve the cash option. Now, the program includes direct cash benefits for those who qualify. Evanston became the first city in the United States to pass a reparations resolution in 2019 for black residents who qualified. So far, the city has only spent just under $330,000 of the $10 million promised. They got a little ways to go, Brandon.
Yeah, they do. They better make
show me the money.
They better make it quick.
That's right.
You know, like I said, these ideas or projects or whatever you want to call them, they're great on paper, but the execution has to be there.
I've always said that.
And I always feel like it's one of those situations where people, they write down the idea like, oh, this is a great idea. And then they think of maybe the first couple steps, and then you get deeper and deeper into it. And it just falls by the wayside.
Reparations, yes, absolutely. I think the task is how you go about it and making sure it's leveled that everybody who's supposed to benefits from it equally. I mean, you're a black man, I'm a black woman. Do you get, $5 million and I only get $3.2 million? I mean, how are you going to factor and figure all of that out? And with these states individually going about, and cities and municipalities trying to go about, reparations in very different ways, I'm just hoping folks won't get lost in that, and those who deserve the reparations and should have the reparations don't miss out on that. So that's my only concern. But reparations, absolutely. A cash payout is, what you immediately go to. But are there any other ways that we can feel reparations, maybe wipe out, student loans for African Americans? I don't know. I just want it to be spread evenly and everybody get their just due once something is decided. But I think there needs to be more uniform. It needs to be more uniformity.
Cash is good. Opportunity is also good too. Just an opportunity to build generational wealth.
Absolutely.
All right, so the University of Texas said Austin is paying tribute to the school's first black students with a temporary exhibit to honor those students who enrolled in the 1950s. It is titled Precursors, We Are Texas East Mall. The display tells us that the story of UT's first black undergraduate students, created by the Contextualization and Commemoration Initiative. The curation displays 118 wooden posts. Each one shares a name and photo with a QR code that goes to the initiative's website. Now, the display is open to the public. Executive Vice President and Provost Sharon Wood said that the purpose of the exhibit being open to the public is to boost community morale. And I'm a big fan of this. I hope it's not temporary, and I hope that they find a way to make this permanent at UT. I was at Florida State when they built 3 statues to the first black athlete at Florida State,
oh, wow.
to the first black student at Florida State, and the first black homecoming queen. And it was, at the time, you know, this was not really a time where we talked too much about race, but it was a great thing to see. And I mean that compared to how we talk about race now. But it was a great thing to see, and looking back at that, it is hard to believe that you have a lot of PWIs, predominantly white institutions, that are just now coming around to, hey, let's find a way to honor our black students who were the first ones to pave a way.
Yeah, and I'm a history buff. I love to see those nostalgic pictures. You know, sometimes, you know, they are happy and they are in great atmospheres and they portray just wonderful times. I think my favorite era is probably the Harlem Renaissance, and then probably you jump up to the 70s. And even though I know, you know, those photos are undermined with a struggle, we still had some great, bright, wonderful moments. And to be able to capture that alongside the struggle, I think is great, because we need to see the balance. We know what we were challenged with and what we're still challenged with as black people, but there were very wonderful moments throughout our history as we continue to fight for justice and equal rights. And I think that's important as well.
And to think, this was the 1950s. Less than 100 years ago, there are people, these are people who, they were born and they're now in their 70s.
Yes.
And so
They're
it is not that long ago.
That's right.
It is not that long ago.
That's right. It never is for black folks. You can reach back 1-2 generations and you're right there.
Right, or even a half generation
at this point. You're right there. All right, today, there you go. For Women's Her Story Month, we celebrate author Terry McMillan, one of my favorites. She is a novelist who centers her writings around the experiences of black women.
All right, so she is the #1 New York Times best-selling author of Waiting to Exhale, How Stella Got Her Groove Back, Disappearing Acts, A Day Late and a Dollar Short, and The Interruption of Everything, and the editor of Breaking Ice, an anthology of contemporary African-American fiction.
Yeah, 2 of her books became blockbuster movies, which include Waiting to Exhale and How Stella Got Her Groove Back, both starring Angela Bassett. McMillan was born in Port Huron, Michigan, right up the way here out east. She received a BA in journalism from the University of California, Berkeley, and currently resides in LA.
Congrats to her.
Yeah.
You know, when you talk about Shonda Rhimes and all the things that she has done for media and black women who are, you know, writing, you go back to Terry McMillan. And I remember, you know, Waiting to Exhale, How Stella Got Her Groove Back, and how groundbreaking those movies were, considering that she was, you know, an African-American woman who was writing these, and they were mainstream.
Isn't that amazing how you can go back, how you got Terry McMillan, and she could probably go back to Toni Morrison back to Zora Neale Hurston. So, I mean, just generationally, the beauty that has come from their works. Now, everybody talks about How Stella Got Her Groove Back and Waiting to Exhale. We did mention Disappearing Acts, one of my faves, because I remember it came out my senior year in high school, '89. The book was amazing, and then Sanaa Lathan and Wesley Snipes did the movie, which was pretty good as well. So, Terry, really, like you alluded to, kind of set this thing on fire, and we just want to give her flowers today inside of her History Month. Before we wrap it up, can you believe we're almost through March?
I can't believe it.
These days.
I just hope there's warm weather behind it.
I know. We want some spring temperatures.
Yeah,
indeed. All right, up next, the latest in, Jonathan Majors' assault scandal. It's getting crazier and crazier, Brandon.
This one kind of hurts. So look, we'll have more on the charges that have now been brought against this actor.
You're watching FOXSOUL's Black Report.
All right, soulmates, welcome back to FOXSOUL's Black Report. Let's get into rising Hollywood star Jonathan Majors. He has been charged with assault and aggravated harassment of a woman, after a woman accused him of hitting her during a domestic dispute.
Now, the woman alleges that Majors hit her in the face with an open hand, put his hands on her neck, causing bruising, and grabbed her hand, causing swelling and bruising. Majors' defense lawyer says that he is innocent and expects that the charges will be dropped after evidence is released. You might know by now the Army has removed ads featuring Majors following the news of his arrest. Majors is scheduled to appear in court on May 8th. And before we went to break, I was saying, Brandon, this case is becoming more and more strange as the said girlfriend, and who knew he had a girlfriend?
Right.
Said girlfriend has now recanted, this is according to the new reports, recanted her accusations in 2 written statements. It also goes on to say that the video will show that he'll be cleared. However, it appears as though investigators, authorities are still pushing forward with the charges. And now, there's now just the floodgates have opened. People are now making statements that aren't necessarily in Jonathan's favor. He came out of Yale, a very high respected drama school. Angela Bassett is a graduate. But now they're saying on that theatrical scene that he was a part of, he had some behavioral, concerns, and that he wasn't really the nicest guy. So now you're getting all of the dirt, and whether it's real or not real, it's just the fact that it just doesn't help this climb because he was blowing up.
Yeah, I mean, he had 2 back-to-back movies with Ant-Man, the third Ant-Man, and then he had Creed 3. Mm-hmm. He was set to have a role in the next phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe as the next big villain. Did Lovecraft Country, Devotion, which one of our studio operators had told us about. And you hate to see that when something goes wrong, or if there's an incident, that all these other people come out of the woodwork seemingly,
and have something to say.
And you question, like, well, why wasn't this spoken of before his rise, or before he got to where he was? And that's what you question about. And then to know that the accuser has taken back her statements and said that there's video. Kind of already too late, because as we said, the Army has already pulled some of their ads, and that's some money for him that's taken off his table.
You know how we do.
Yeah.
Black Twitter, conspiracy.
Right.
Right. You know what we claim when something like this goes down. If in fact he is innocent, I hope the best, and I hope he can come out of this.
Yeah.
PR, legal folks, do their job to pull him on out of this so he can continue on with his climb.
I feel like there is a way, considering how talented he is.
Yeah.
But you hate to see these missteps, but you hope that you hate to be cliche, but setback is another window for a comeback.
Yeah, and if he comes out of this, stay single for a while, regroup, and just be single, sir.
Yeah. Let's talk about another rising star here. Quinta Brunson, star of Abbott Elementary. It's a fantastic show.
Awesome.
Oh, so she will make history as the host of NBC's Saturday Night Live on April 1st with Lil Yachty performing as the musical guest. Now, Brunson has recently won multiple awards, including Emmy, Golden Globe, SAG-AFTRA Award, or SAG Award, alongside her Abbott Elementary co-stars. Now, Lil Yachty's recent album, Let's Start Here, peaked at number 9 on the Billboard 200 chart and number 1 on the Billboard Rock album chart. Now, the episode will also mark the first since the SNL editors and post-production staff and NBC reached a new tentative deal, staving off a potential strike. So I'm looking forward to this because I'm a big fan of Quinta Brunson and all that she's done. I hope that the writers do right by her. I hope that she does have some input in some of the skits that she does. Because I always feel like, and maybe this is just me, when they do have black hosts on SNL, the shows aren't as good. I remember they had there was another show, another episode, and I can't remember the name, but I saw it and I was really looking forward to it.
And it didn't
Issa
hit.
Rae. It was Issa Rae.
Oh, and it didn't hit for you.
And it didn't hit for me, and I was like, she's a lot funnier than this. She deserved a lot more. But you never know, things happen during the week.
When you go back to Quinta's beginnings, it was skits, it was, social media, it was, ooh, you must be, so I'm hoping that all comes up and comes out, during her appearance on SNL. It's a great honor from what I gather. That's what all the folks say, being asked to host. But let me tell you, she is becoming a red carpet darling, because she will come with it. I mean, just her glow up is just amazing, and I'm so happy for her. It appears appears as though she's doing it her way.
Yes.
And, you know, with a hit show, you know, that's when you make them stand up and pay attention, and you run the room. And Abbott Elementary is doing fantastic. We're catching up on episodes now on Hulu, but it is really, really good.
It's like Shaq told a basketball player right before the slam dunk contest, they may not know your name, but make them remember at the end of the day.
That's right. And that young guy did.
He did.
Yeah, he did. All right, so let's move on here to billionaire Sheila Johnson, philanthropist, sports franchise executive, and co-founder of BET. She is set to release a memoir in September. Walk Through Fire will detail her journey as a Black woman who became a pioneering billionaire, including her troubled marriage to fellow BET founder Robert L. Johnson. She hopes that her experiences will help others who face similar obstacles in their life and career. Johnson, an ex-husband, started BET back in 1980, and she has since had a partial ownership of 3 sports teams and is a global ambassador for CARE. Now, the book is described as a deeply personal portrait of Johnson's life.
This would be a very good read here.
I think so too.
It's always interesting when you learn more about the people who help find BET and create BET and you know, bring it into our homes, because for the most part, you know, we know the Donnie Simpsons and, you know, the Big Tiggers and the Free and AJ. We all know the people who were on the TV, but the people who are behind the scenes and really brought that into our homes, they have an interesting story too.
So on the other side of this, former CEO of BET, Deborah Lee, who has been very clear and up and honest about her affair with Robert Johnson. Her book just came out, so the timing is very interesting, and we might have a woman-to-woman, hey Barbara, this is you know, a moment just to hear the other side. You know, whether or not Mrs. Johnson was aware of the extramarital affair or not. If she did, maybe she didn't know it was Deborah Lee. So I know people are going to be fishing in this book to see what she has to say as well. And I think the timing is very interesting.
I know one thing, Robert Johnson better speak up. He's looking like a Tyler Perry villain right now.
Both his formers are having their say.
Right.
What say you, sir?
All right, let's talk about something that is right here in Detroit.
Yeah, man.
Motown legend Martha Reeves, she is reaching out to her fans to help her achieve her dream of getting a start on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Now, Reeves and her team need to raise $55,000 by June in order to secure her spot for next year. Her former manager, who nominated her for the honor, was unable to cover the fees, leading to a fundraising campaign. Now, if the goal isn't met, her star selection may be withdrawn, and the nomination process could take several more years to restart. Reeves' team is now seeking support from corporations and private donors to help her reach the deadline. I was today years old when I found out that people, you raise money to get your star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. I just thought that it was given to you.
Brandon, we had a morning meeting today, and I was devastated. I'm still devastated, as you can see. I did not know that you paid.
Yeah.
So when you see, by the time they get to the street and it's cleared all out and there's a podium and families everywhere and they kneeling and boo-hooing and kissing the star, is that like a put on? Because you or somebody paid, you knew this was happening. And so I'm just so disturbed. I understand Mother Reeves is trying to, you know, get her star, but she just blew up the spot as to how this thing really works from those on the outside. We're just thinking, oh my God, Brandon, you were an incredible anchor at the, now you're in the yesteryear of your career. We just want to honor you, and here's a star. No, you done wrote a check.
Well, let's take some of that money too.
It's crazy.
Does it kind of water it down for you? Or?
It does, and that's unfortunate. I'm hoping Martha Reeves gets it. I mean, she should have worldwide support. I mean, that Motown legacy is forever. Maybe she might want to think about partnering with, if there's any surviving members of the Vandellas, because that name might help her, you know, garner the support a little bit more so than, you know, a solo act. But I'm hoping she gets it, because, you know, for a lot of those artists who've been honored, you know, the $55,000 is a drop in the bucket.
It's a lot of
but
money.
At the same time, I can see why everybody's getting a star now. It makes sense. Like, you get a star, you get a star. Because back in the day, it was like,
it was very selective.
What?
Yeah.
You got 55 grand? Let's get it. Can we share?
I can put a GoFundMe together.
Right.
Yeah.
Hicks Hudson, and we can share half of the stock.
Right.
We can make it happen. It's a reality
now.
now.
Let's do it. Yeah. All right, still ahead. On FOXSOUL's Black Report, history has been made at one university.
Yep, we'll tell you what the school has finally done for the first time in over 100 years. You are watching FOXSOUL's Black Report. We will be right back.
All right, so Loyola University, New Orleans, appoints its first black president in the school's 111-year history.
Yeah, Dr. Cole will be the university's 18th president and will make history as the first black person to lead the institution. He will also be the second layperson to hold this role.
Good for him. Loyola's Board of Trustees called Dr. Cole a, quote, uniquely experienced higher education administrator who has dedicated his career to the service of their students. He begins his tenure on June 1st. So he's got a couple of months of just hanging out, and then he's got to get to work.
That's right. Moving on here, Clara Mama Bridges had a chance encounter with MLK when he was a teenager, and her birthday wish came true when she got to meet his youngest child, Bernice King.
So the Atlanta native's birthday wish came true when Bernice King joined the 102-year-old for her celebration. Mama Bridges enjoyed her big day with a chili dog from the varsity. And if you've been to Atlanta, you know all about the varsity, and a meetup with King.
Yeah, Mama Bridges worked 33 years as a nurse, including her tenure as a pediatric nurse at Grady Hospital. That's where she encountered the young Dr. King before he was a doctor. She said this was absolutely a dream come true. She often asked herself, has she lived the life that God has given her? And her answer to herself is yes. And it was good to see my soror, soon-to-be birthday girl, Dr. Bernice King as well.
You know, when you live to be 102 every day.
That's right.
Is a celebration. Every day is a blessing.
That's right. It is amazing. Listen, I always enjoy having you here.
It's
like this for me. It's this Black Boy Joy rotation going on. Brandon, Josh, Lee. We're going to throw Randy up in there.
Hey, we got to get them all.
For Nicola Corte. All right, for the full rundown on today's stories and more, you can access FOXSOUL's video on demand on any of our partners. And listen here, you can even access past shows and other Black-centered content. And don't forget, Soulmates, we've been telling you this, download that FOXSOUL app. It is absolutely free.
Free 99.
Yeah.
Doesn't cost anything.
I know you got to go catch up on some work. Yeah, we snatched you away from the regularly scheduled program.
News never stops, but I'm here, so.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you immensely. It's always good just kicking it with you, brother.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, I'm Courtney Hicks.
I'm Brandon Hudson.
You're watching FOXSOUL's Black Report. Thanks so much. Have a good one. Stay safe, and we will see you soon.